Hi, everyone. This is Elizabeth with Hope in Lubbock, Texas, and tonight is our monthly potluck here in Lubbock, and we are Skyping in Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and we're talking about transformational entrepreneurship for entrepreneurs and creatives and visionaries. So I hope that you are joining us and going to enjoy this talk. And I'd like to introduce Rosie. Dr. Rosie Kuhn is the author of the popular Self-Empowerment 101 and founder of the Paradigm Shifts coaching group in Silicon Valley. She is a preeminent thought leader in the field of transformational coaching, coach training, and leadership development. Rosie did write and teach the curriculum, the transformational coaching curriculum at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology for 10 years. And she also specializes in identifying and transforming belief systems that hold us back in business and in life. She empowers individuals, executives, and organizations to fearlessly embrace transformation and realize previously untapped potential. So Rosie began her career over 30 years ago as a clinical therapist for addiction recovery programs in Nova Scotia, Canada. And in 1999, she founded the Paradigm Shifts coaching group. And in 2001, she created the Transformational Coaching Training Program in Silicon Valley. And that's what at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology that I just mentioned. So she is absolutely brilliant, and she is my mentor, my advisor, my coaching supervisor, and also on staff at my school, the Institute of Transformational and Transpersonal Coaching International. And I'm so happy to have you here, Rosie. Your work with Gap and SunDisk, Flextronics, Sun Microsystems, Nike Israel. You coach in Russia, you literally coach all over the world. So we're really, really fortunate and grateful to have you here tonight. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm going to turn you around so you can see the people in Lubbock.
Okay. Hello, people in Lubbock. There you are. Hi.
Okay.
I've seen some of you before. I get to see you again.
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, I want to show you. So, am I on now? Is it my?
You are.
Okay.
It's just you. I'm going to mute our microphone.
Okay. I'm going to show you guys. If you didn't see before, I live on beautiful Orcas Island in the San Juan Islands, just at the very edge of the United States. And I don't know if you can see, but that's kind of the view. Can you see water? Yeah, you're muted, so you can't see. But anyway, if that gives you any idea where I'm at, this is a friend of mine's house. I live on the mountain, looking over a valley, but they live over the water. So this talk tonight came out of a couple of things. I'm going to Minneapolis next Sunday for a workshop called Who's Running My Business? I have been an executive coach and business coach for a long time. And I wrote a book called Dilemmas of Being in Business, which was based on my work primarily in corporate work. And but when I'm looking at or listening to people who are have a small business or even people in corporations, they sometimes make dumb decisions. Anybody in the room there has made a dumb decision about their business or don't know how to make a decision? Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your honesty. So sometimes when we're not sometimes, like every day, we're having to make decisions that impact on us personally and professionally. And sometimes those decisions are not wise decisions. So anyway, I was asked to come to Minneapolis to do a workshop on that. And then another workshop, somebody asked me to come and do one on visionaries and entrepreneurs with heart. So this time with you guys, I thought, well, this is a great time to kind of bring all of that together with you. So I want to talk a little bit, but primarily I want to have a discussion with you. I want to hear what's going on for you and talk about the dilemmas of the businesses, or how it is for you to be in the businesses that you're in. One more thing that came from all of these little workshops, is that I decided to do a video series and a podcast, and primarily a book that'll come out of it, called The Dilemmas of a Small Business Guru. I've been writing a series of books called Parent Like a Guru, which was based on another book that I wrote called Cultivating Spirituality in Children. And then I wrote a book and videos on Diet Like a Guru. So there was Parent Like a Guru, Diet Like a Guru. And so this one is The Dilemmas of a Small Business Guru. Because the fact of the matter is, any of us who are creating a business with heart, we're looking at not only how to do right business practices based on how to make money, but we're also looking at how does it serve our heart. So so that's the challenge for many of us, is how do we make good decisions and smart decisions, and how do those decisions set up with our hearts. So one of the things I write a lot. I don't know how that happens, because I don't think of myself as being a writer. Was never a writer until after I finished my dissertation, and then people said, you should write. So I started writing. But one of the things I was writing, and I don't know even if it's a blog or anything yet, but it's called The Corporate Crucible. And the idea is that anywhere where we're in business, or any aspect of our life, is a crucible, a cauldron, where we are learning and growing and being challenged, not only mentally and emotionally, but also spiritually. So I wrote this the other day in preparation for being with you guys. The crucible, there is an area or aspect of our life that is closed to the potential of spiritual awakening. None that is absent of dilemmas which challenge us to choose based on fear, or based on serving our highest truth, our highest good, and our greatest contribution to the world. So when we go to work, or when we go to our offices, or wherever we go that we're doing what we call work, we are immediately immersed in that place of, how do I be my fullest self and bring my heart's desire to the world, and make money, and connect with clients, or whatever it is that we're wanting to have happen in our businesses. So that's the biggest challenge, is being able to see that the work we're doing, and this, even for those of you here in the room and watching this elsewhere, is at that point where your personal and spiritual self meets your business self, the self that needs to create a livelihood, we'll say, through currency or through money and services. So Elizabeth, let's open up the mic, and I'd like to hear some comments, or what's going on for you guys, or thoughts or questions that come up saying what I'm saying.
Okay, great. We've got the mic. Anybody want to come up to the mic? You might want to come up here, Gary, and I'll move this.
We can see if she can hear him from there.
Okay.
I could hear whoever said that.
Well, I was just going to ask you to repeat the name of that book that you mentioned right at the beginning, so I can put it down. I'm a professor in international business, and it sounds ideal. And I work mostly in Sweden, and they need it in their library.
So I mentioned Dilemmas of Being in Business. Is that the one?
Oh, it was the first one you mentioned.
Gary, you're going to have me mention all my books. That would be sad.
You mentioned the unholy path of a reluctant something.
The unholy. So the first book I wrote was Self-Empowerment 101.
Okay, no, that wasn't it. So.
And then and Elizabeth mentioned The Unholy Path of a Reluctant Adventurer, which is autobiographical. Then there's dilemmas of being in business. And there's also the ABC.
Dilemmas of being in business. I think that was it.
Okay, great.
But maybe I should rephrase that as an introductory book to put in a business school library, which is the one that you would recommend as being the first one.
That, I think dilemmas would be it.
Okay.
And the other book that was part of that little series was a book called The ABCs of Spirituality in Business. So those two would be the tops for a business school. And when I finish this book, Dilemmas Guru, I think that'll be a great one too.
Okay, so
thank you.
Dilemmas. I'm writing.
Okay.
Dilemmas of being in business. Okay, well, thank you. I don't want to dominate the crowd here, so let's see who else has something.
All right. Any questions or thoughts from what I've said already? Who of you are in dilemmas or in challenges with your businesses in terms of this place of personal and how to make money? Anybody in the room have that?
I'll share on that.
Okay, great.
I'm not even sure if I have a dilemma because I've not successfully been able to transition my practice into a business because I continually give it away. So I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I work really hard. I work full time. I don't have the luxury of spending more time on my Reiki practice to really build it up. So I've got these very limited number of opportunities to give Reiki, and if I can't get people to sign up that want to pay for it, I'm like, well, why don't you just come over, just to try to, so it's, and also asking for the payment. That's just really hard. Even on the times I have done business transactions, it was when it got to that part of asking for the money, I felt really awkward.
Awesome. Great, thank you. We'll touch on that. I want to hear from a few more people, and then hopefully we'll come in with that. If you guys would say your name too when you're speaking, it really helps me to get to know you.
Rosie, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Deborah. Well,
Hi, Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
I'm right back here. I just recently quit my full-time job back in May. I am now a Dr. Naturopathy, and I have been working with clients, and I do feel kind of like Leslie. I have been working with clients for some time, and at that point, when you finish your session, I do know where Leslie's coming from, the reluctancy of, okay, you owe me now. But it's gotten, I think for me, the confidence is built, and I think that's taken some time, because when you do exchange those services, it's no different than us going to somebody. And so I think I know I used to be exactly where Leslie is, and there's still some people that I do give my services away to, which I'm starting to find that balance, but I don't want to lose that balance because I now need to depend on this as full-time income, but also, where's that balance? That, so I'm kind of tagging on Leslie's on as well.
Excellent, great. So the dilemma quite often is my needs versus my client's needs, and it's not like a versus, but it's like, so I wanna do what I love to do, Reiki, we'll say, and I want to do it because I love it, and I'm happy when I'm doing it, and at some point I have to make some money doing it. I have to create a livelihood for myself, and that quite often there's a dilemma. I should charge for this, or I shouldn't charge for this, especially as a spiritual issue. Quite often, and when I was training at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, which no longer exists, by the way. If anybody goes and Googles it, it doesn't exist anymore. It's now Sophia University. But we would do an exercise like, what is spirituality? And there was a place where people could not choose to charge for their services because they felt that it was not a spiritual thing to do. And I was trained, I was specialized, I was a therapist, but then I specialized in spiritual guidance. And it was like, oh my God, you can't charge for that. This is the work of spirit. How do you do that? But the part that's really important is for each of us to look at what's our highest truth here. Leslie, what's your highest desire here? What's your heart's desire here? Is it just to do it because you love it, or is it actually to have this exchange of currency, we'll say, so that you're earning money or whatever it is that's your currency and loving what you do?
Both of those things, and also making the world a better place, and making the world a better place for that one person that I've interacted with. All of those things, all of
Right.
those. But the part that I'm most, I don't have a problem with the exchange of energies until it comes to the money energy, and that's where I have the problem with the exchange of the money energy.
Excellent. Well, let's just talk about that. And I'm happy to hear from all of you as well. It's like, what happens when it becomes the M word, money? What happens to, I'm fine with the exchange until it's the M word. What's the difference? What happens? Anybody can answer.
Well,
Yep, Gary.
This is Gary again. In my years in education, working for universities and giving programs, I discovered, along with my colleagues, of course, that the more you charge, the more value the recipient perceives that he or she is getting, up to a point, of course. So that it's not just merely the exchange of money and this nasty little thing that we have to deal with money. It works in the other person that he or she perceives and will treasure more what is being offered
Yes.
if they have to pay more.
Yes. I totally agree. So let's say that's a matter of fact, okay? That's a matter of fact. Leslie, we now know that as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Okay. The look on your face says something else, Leslie.
Well,
What happens?
I don't know about other people, but I have, even before I ever thought about going into business for myself or having a spiritual business for myself, money is a uncomfortable subject for me.
Yeah.
I'm just not comfortable with money. I'm just not comfortable with discussing or asking.
Great. Great. So one of the intentions that I would love to have happen for you guys is, I mean, all of us have a level of or a degree of discomfort regarding money. All of us have issues because of how we were raised and our consensus view of reality and spirituality, and all of that gives us different perspectives that have us be uncomfortable with money. But we're all in business to make money, right? If you're not in business to make money, then you're not in business. Now you're doing something else.
Okay.
So part of being a business person, and that's why I talked about the crucible element of it, the cauldron that you put yourself in as a business individual, is that you're now saying, I have to work on this issue that appears to be not spiritual, but it's actually a very spiritual issue. Money's a very spiritual issue. Does that make sense? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Money is a spiritual issue. Anybody have something to say about that?
This is Deborah again. I was going to say one thing, and it probably tags on that a little bit. I think as we're becoming practitioners and we want to reach out, some of that when we're new to working with people, I think there's a little bit of self-worth involved in that. Did they really get what they needed to out of that? So at the end, when I'm working with a client, I always make sure that they've got everything they wanted to out of their session. But I still think, it's gotten a little bit easier for me, but around the clock, you start wondering, and I have different clients from 80s to, and some of that I just donate because I want them to be well.
Got it. So quite often, over promise or over deliver. And we do this because of this issue of self-worth and to one degree or another. Okay. So how is self-worth a spiritual issue? Well, I'm tying self-worth in now as self-worth equals in this moment the amount of money that I'm charging for my work. How is self-worth a spiritual issue?
Well, I think at some point, this is Deborah again, you know, I guess it's a value, you know, do we value ourselves enough to project it or to share it with somebody else?
So, and how is that a spiritual issue? What makes this conversation a spiritual issue as opposed to, I mean, we know it's a business issue, right?
Right. Okay. Well,
How is it a spiritual issue?
I guess, do you feel if it's right to do that? I mean, you know, spiritually, and really honestly, before I work with somebody, I'm always kind of set the energy and the air, and I always kind of ask ahead of time. You know, before I work with anybody, I set it in a spiritual tone, and I don't want to overcharge. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And
right. So I'm gonna interrupt you, Leslie.
Yes.
What makes this a spiritual issue?
I don't know. The only thing that I really came up with thinking about that is that as a child of God, that I have great value, and what I offer to other people has great value. And the part that where I think the miscommunication or the breakdown in communication is for me is how does that value translate into numbers with the dollar sign in front of it?
Okay, thank you. Woohoo! So Deborah, I interrupted because you were saying all the right things, and what you're speaking about is really right on. And I wanted to get to this part,
right.
So I just shifted to Leslie. So I just want to let you know I'm hearing you, and you're right on. And that place of I'm a child of God. I have absolute potentiality of the value that I bring into the world with my work and my heart. That's 100%. Right? It's 100%.
Yes.
Okay. Period. Let's put a period on that sentence and start charging, right?
and Rosie,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, as a spiritual issue, on it being identity, right, which is what we're talking about. It's our identity on a spiritual issue. And also, you know, from past life, most of these services were done from a monastic platform. And so there's that, but in the paradigm shift, right, that we're going through with not being in monastic position in order to do our work, we don't have to do that anymore. And so there's a value issue, self-worth issue about the spiritual being as valuable as the natural, a doctor, a traditional doctor being more valuable than perhaps the holistic practitioner. And I think we're changing, it's about centuries and centuries of years of a thought shift into a whole new paradigm of the work, and valuing the natural and valuing the spiritual in the natural world as much as we do traditional natural roles. It's a whole paradigm shift.
So, and absolutely. And the challenge is that people who are psychologists and therapists who are have more traditional businesses and all, people with beauty salons, people with car rentals, or it doesn't matter what it is, everyone has that place where they have to decide what they're charging and whether they are valuable enough to charge first of all, and then how much, and so forth. So yes, and it's certainly harder for us who are in the more spiritual domain, we'll say. But what I want everyone to know is, and you guys already know this, but my message in a sense is there's an element of us present to every single communication that we have as a business person or as a receiver of business. There's that heart connection. There's something that's bigger than just, well, I'm learning to be a cosmologist, and so that's the cosmetician, the person that does makeup. Doesn't matter. The cosmologist who's working with universal principles, the same thing. It's like, what am I worth? And in that moment, we put aside that sense of I'm a child of God. I'm part of the universal potentiality of the world, and this is my gift in the world. And so how do I put a price on that? And not only that, but how do I say to Leslie, hey Leslie, I charge $150 for my coaching sessions. Are you interested? And you go, it's like, it took me a long time to be able to say that. I charge $150 for my coaching sessions. Now I have no problem saying it. But that place of, on the one hand, we speak our principles of spirituality and how we implement them in our work world or our family world or our health world. It's so often quite sort of the opposite. I'm spiritual in principle, but I'm not acting that out. I'm not engaging in my life and in my practice from those spiritual principles. So that's the challenge that I want you guys to bring into your reality in your businesses, your business life as a business person is to notice the dilemmas that are constantly with you in regard to what's mine to do and how much do I charge for it and how do I do that from the spiritual perspective. Any thoughts or questions?
I got something. I have spoken yet. My name's Stefan.
You'll have to come closer because I can't hear.
You have to come closer.
Okay. Right, can you see me now? Right here.
Hello.
I guess two things came to my mind, and when you're a more spiritually minded person, you're going to, probably have this idea that your gifts have been given to you.
Yes.
And so, who would I be to ask someone to pay for them? Because, how could I have asked for this gift myself? So that was one thought that came to my mind that would be probably like a personal block. I don't know if it would necessarily be self-worth, but it'd be more of that understanding of, well, maybe I'm just passing on what, has been freely given to me, right?
Yes.
That would be one idea. And then the other thing is, I think in any sort of more social work or helping or spiritual guidance, especially, we have two different, schemas we operate out of: business norms and social norms. And once it feels more like a social norm when it's, relational. And so, you wouldn't ask, I'll share this real quickly. When I was very existentially depressed as a 14-year-old, and I asked my parents after they, sent me a counselor, saw him like maybe 5 or 6 times, and then I asked my parents, Mom, Dad, why do we have to pay someone to be my friend?
Yes.
Yeah. So that kind of gets at my second point. Yeah.
Those are both really great points. And, I get that a lot from wives or ex-wives, like, Rosie's only listening to you because you pay her to listen to you.
Right.
You didn't pay her. She wouldn't really care. And so those are parts of the conversation that are constant, right? They're constant in a sense of, how do I be spiritual? And what's the spiritual principle that is present in this conversation that you're bringing up? Tell me your name.
Stefan.
Stefan. Hi, Stefan. What's the principle that's present in this moment in this conversation about this? There's a spiritual truth, or there's a spiritual principle here that's at play, and part of that principle is it's a gift, so you shouldn't have to pay for it. Okay, what's the other side of that? And anybody can answer, not just Stefan. I don't want to put you on the spot, but what's the other element of that?
Gary, again, the first thing that pops in my mind is that the spiritual gift was given to you as a means of providing you with a livelihood the rest of your life.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
The other thing about it though too is that if you don't get paid, at some point you're not going to be able to continue offering or being able to do your gift.
Excellent.
You're going to have to go get a job at Walmart or whatever. Or Texas Tech.
Well, I do have something to say about that specific point, though, and I read this one article one time, and they pointed out how Jesus was a carpenter, and he had his spiritual work, and so there can be different strategies of doing this. They called that the marginal strategy, and they said some people that are very gifted or very conscious or enlightened, they'll have a very basic job, and then they'll bring their gift to the world in a non-monetized way, and that's actually one way to do it, and probably the way that I have done it thus far in my life.
Okay. So the one of the things that I'm going to ask you guys to do, and Gary, you're going to write this down, I'm sure, is
Need something to write on. I was using my telephone before,
so that somebody goes, what did Rosie say about that? Is every single thing where you have a dilemma, where you have a yes but, I shouldn't have to charge for this because it's a gift from God. There's a yes but. And every yes but requires you, this is part of the business crucible, or the relationship crucible, or the parent crucible, or the health crucible. Every yes but requires you to look at what is your absolute truth. And that yes but requires an answer. And what most of us do is we avoid it. And we keep going, doing 2 jobs or 3 jobs when perhaps it's not essential to do that. My perspective is that when we are living our heart's desire and our life purpose, and really fully energetically in that field, we're going to look at every limiting belief and every limiting activity that we do and choose. Is that limiting perspective based on the spiritual truths or the truth that I speak, or is it based on fear? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in a sense, the question could be, Stefan, this gift has been given to me, and what's the consequence of me sharing it and asking for an exchange of something? Like there's a fear usually, okay? You're shaking your head. So what shows up? Anybody else? I don't want to put stuff on.
Well, my fear is that at the end of the session or whatever, and I'm like, okay, so that'll be $55 or whatever, and they're like, it wasn't worth it. I don't want to give you any money. And then it's like, what are we gonna do? Fight? I don't know. And this is also ridiculous. But like, these are all the fears. These are
okay. Beautiful. So when I'm talking to my client, potential client, and I say, here's what I do, here's what you can expect. I work an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, generally speaking. I charge $150 a session, not an hour. And you can call me 24/7 for spot coaching if you need. They say yes or no. They may say, well, can you do it for 125, or can you do it for 65, or can you do it, whatever that is, and I get to say yes or no. but there's an agreement that we're making, right? So
Right.
part of that, they might be upset about it, or they might say, you really suck at what you're doing. I'm not paying you. But hopefully most of us have gotten far enough along that we're charging what feels like a good compensation for our work and our energies. And so we charge what we feel is a right amount. But still the questions on the table here of, this is a gift that's been given to me, and each of you have your gift that's given to you. And so how do I do this in a way that feels spiritually congruent for me, so that I can actually be doing this as my livelihood, and what I thrive at doing, as opposed to having to go to Walmart 40 hours and I get to do this 2 hours. And so there's another spiritual principle here that I'm coming back to. What is that?
Well, for me, it's like the talents, the parable of the talents, where you were given these talents, and if you just hold on to them to save them, that's not what they're for. You were given talents to go out and to multiply them. And so that's one of the principles that comes up for me.
Okay. So what about gratitude? Let's talk about gratitude. You give your gifts and people feel grateful.
Yeah.
And they're grateful enough to say, hey, I want to know what you charge, because I actually want to pay you for what you do.
That works well.
That's
What's going on for them?
It's lovely. It's lovely. We love that.
Yeah.
And when I raised my fees to $100 a session after I got talked to by a retired psychiatrist who said, I hope you're charging at least $120 a session. I said, really? He said, you're not. He said, how much are you charging? And I said, well, it depends. And he's like, no. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't go to 120. I was like, okay, but I felt 10 feet tall when I walked out of his office. I mean, to have somebody at that caliber of experience to tell me that my work is worth that much money really gave me a sense of worth for myself, because somebody more experienced told me that, right? But I still couldn't go to 120, 125. I went to 100 and got comfortable with that. And it's that sense of that whoever can pay that will pay that. And I'm not going to go without clients because it's too expensive. And if somebody really needs it, they will make the modification in their life and put their money where they value it. If they are grateful enough for my services, then they are going to reallocate their resources to prioritize what they really want in their life.
That's right. Excellent.
I would like to
So
say-
when I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a thought with that. I'm Leanne. I'm over here. You can't see me.
Hi, Leanne.
Here I am.
There you are.
Okay.
There you are. Hi,
Wait,
Leanne.
on this issue, I do massage therapy, and I'm also have recently added Reiki to that. And but the Reiki is a little more difficult for me to judge on how to charge. And there are times I do charge. I don't charge as much for Reiki. It tends to be a shorter session. And I know other Reiki masters that have been doing it for a lot longer that don't charge that much more. And so I've based it on that. But also there are times whenever I will run into a person in the community, I know they couldn't afford $5. They just don't have it. And I've had this pull to do Reiki. And so I do, and it's extremely rewarding just in itself.
Sure.
Yeah. It seems that they get a great deal out of it, too. And that's happened a couple of times.
Yes.
So I think, with me, flexibility on that issue is a...
Yes.
And that was,
So
Elizabeth talked about the principle to
you know, we're always constantly working with our spiritual principles and our fears. Okay, fear of being homeless, fear of destitute, fear of aloneness. You know, we're always balancing what we believe, what we say we believe as our spiritual truths. It's always a juxtaposition to, well, here's what the market will bear. Here's what the business people say. Here's what the experts say. And in starting to write this book, Dilemmas of a Small Business Guru, it was like, you know, there are people who are like millionaires. Their family have the trust funds up the wazoo. They've gone to Yale and Harvard. They've got the business degrees. And they're successful. And then you've got people who are out of high school and they're Hispanic and they are women and gay or lesbian and they're successful. Okay, like there's no right way, if you will. There is no right way. There's only your way, because another person who is wealthy beyond the wazoo has failed at 17 businesses, or because it doesn't matter how much expertise a person has. If emotionally and spiritually they're not in alignment with what they're doing, and this is I've worked with a lot of different business people in different levels and different organizations, and when they're not in alignment, when their personal desire is in conflict with that place of ego, we'll say, I'm supposed to be getting this and I'm supposed to be doing that, and it should be this way. That's the conflict, and that's where we get stuck. And that's where we say, I should be doing it, I should be charging more, or I should be charging less. And we're not listening to our inner guide. We're not listening to our inner spirit. We're not listening to our heart's desire. And it's a challenge, but that's, every honest to God, every executive I've talked to, the conversation comes down to, what's your heart desire? What's the truth inside of you? And every single time when they pay attention to that, the fulfillment of what they're doing in the world shifts, and the relationships they make shift, and the quality of their presence, the quality of their organization shifts. And it's not about the money. It's never about the money, but we have these thoughts that make it about the money. And it's really about self-value, or am I a spiritual person if I'm charging money, or those kinds of things. But if we don't ask ourselves the fundamental questions, then we keep working in circles and never feeling successful or fulfilled at our heart's desire. Never. And the bottom line of that is we get tired and we wear out, and then, as someone said, we're not able to be present and provide the gifts that have been given to us. So that's a really, really important element of, if I'm not taking care of myself financially in every other way, financially as in getting, offering my services to people and they can offer me my fee. That's the agreement. If I don't do that, I'm going to get overwhelmed, I'm going to get tired, I'm going to get burnt out, and then I'm not able to provide my services, my gifts to the world, my talents. So the other element that's really challenging is the element of faith. Okay, we're in business, and that's about money, and then you fail or you succeed, and all of these black and white elements of this. And where is faith in that conversation? And for me, faith is about experimenting with the truth, my principles, my spiritual truths. And Leslie, I'm seeing you in the corner of the picture here, and thinking about that place of, it's like, I can try to charge $15. I can see what that's like as an experiment. Okay. And so, the faith that's part and parcel of every single business and every single element and aspect of business is just And in a sense, we either put our faith in the structures and the research and the scientifics and the strategics. We put our faith in that, or we put our faith in something else. And as human beings, we have to find our way to say, well, this particular strategy that this particular business person used, I like that. I want to use that. And so there's, tons of different business models out there, and you get to find yours. If you try to do somebody else's and it doesn't work, because mostly if it's theirs, right? Then you got to find your own. The only way you can find your own is to test and experiment and do research from the inside out. What's a good number that's easy for you to say, Leslie, that you could say out loud? What's one number you can say out loud that's not so scary?
45. 45.
45. Excellent. We want to applaud, give her applause. Yay!
45!
Great. So that in itself was a leap of faith. You said it out loud. You empowered yourself. This is the part of self-empowerment that's so important and critical in evolving ourselves, evolving ourselves spiritually and evolving ourselves as a small business guru, is that there's this place where you have to empower yourself to think it or experiment with it, being different. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so we can use, I have a particular business model. I really like it. Am I making millions of dollars? No, I am not. Do I have all the clients I need to have even I live in a travel trailer. It's 24 feet. I live on this beautiful island, and that's the lifestyle that really supports me. Would I love to have a bigger house? Perhaps. Can I afford it? No, because I'm nourishing my heart's desire and living a life that's really, really important to me. The money keeps coming to be third, fourth, fifth down the list because these other things are more important. So another element of this work is, what's my highest priority? And it can be to be in service, right? Be in service, not servitude. Servitude is when we get tired and bored and I don't want to do this and I'm resentful and I'm angry because I'm not getting paid or I'm not getting re-energized or revived from the outside world. Okay, so I'm just saying a whole bunch of things again. So I'd love some feedback from you guys. When I hear myself talk too much, I go, okay, now it's your turn. We just have a few more minutes, so I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys.
Well, I did teach a Reiki class not that long ago. It was the first one that I taught, and I didn't have a very large turnout, but I did charge a fee that was comparable to the fee I had paid when I took my class. And I did my very best to prepare myself fully, even though it was a small class, and I wasn't going to be making as much money as I had hoped to compensate me for the amount of time. But I still treated it like I would if there were 6 or 8 or 10 people in the class. And at the end of the day, I felt like I had really provided an important service for them and that I had also been compensated. Each one of them compensated me fairly for what they received. And it was a good transaction. It felt very empowering at the end of the day.
Great. That's all that matters to me. That's awesome. Congratulations.
One point that's coming to my mind, it's sort of along these lines. I have an extremely good friend, a spiritual friend, sort of a soulmate, who happens to be a professional translator. And I had an occasion for the university I was working for to have a piece translated into Brazilian Portuguese. And he's one of the few in the world who does that. Awesome. And I said, okay. He says, oh, you're such a dear friend. I won't charge you anything. And I said, no. That's not the way I operate, Martin. I'm asking you for a professional service that you get paid for we're going to pay you your normal fee.
Yes.
And I had
Awesome.
a similar thing with a lady who was a communication, who was preparing some documents. So that's
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? What I'm curious about is, as we're coming to a close here, what's the biggest takeaway for you from our talk? I wish we had 14 hours to do this, because I love this kind of work. But what's the biggest takeaway from this, Deborah?
Rosie, I think the bringing together the spiritual aspect of this, I mean, we know it, but bringing it forefront and knowing that we're all gifted, I think it helps us, or helps me, I'm going to speak for everybody else, but I think it helps me know that we are here to serve for that reason. And we've taken that leap of faith to go forth and go do that. I know with other people in the same industry that I'm in, I've been doing a lot of comparison notes. I'm still sitting here kind of shaking my head because of where we are in the country.
Yes.
You know, in Dallas, for what services are provided equal to what I do, they charge $350 and I charge $40. There's a balance there, and I think we grow into that. And
Yes.
There's actually nothing wrong, because I think we're growing, we're still learning, and there's just, I like that we brought this all out to the table on the forefront. And so I really appreciate you doing this, and I really appreciate everybody else's input here as well. So it's helped me a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, and for me personally, it kind of puts into context. I've spent some time with my 17-year-old daughter recently, and I was talking to her about my vision that I have for my business. And I'm not brave enough to say right now in front of everybody in this room what I told her, but I very enthusiastically shared with her my vision for the future, and felt fully empowered and confident in the services that I provide, and in my ability to follow through and make good on the promise to clients of providing them with the service that I'm projecting forward advertising to them or whatever. And it felt great to tell her that. And then when I got home and I was like, well, yeah, but maybe, but now we're having this conversation, and it's given me a new context for that. And so when you were talking about, did you use the word bliss? That's not what you said. Following your heart or something. That's what I was feeling on that day when I was sharing with Aaron, and looking at the future, what I had to offer, and what benefits I could reap from that offering. And Aaron was like, yeah, Mom, totally. And then I'm like, yeah, how do I make that work in the real world,
Beautiful.
But here we're sharing this, and I can see that it can work in the real world. It isn't just a fantasy. It's a real thing.
That's right. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Yeah. And one of the things you bring up, Leslie, is so important that most of us don't do, is to have a vision statement, a statement of our vision in the world. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of always had one, but when I got it really refined, it made such a difference. And so my vision statement is the fulfillment of the human spirit. So the fulfillment of the human spirit is my goal, right? The fulfillment of the human spirit. How am I going to do that? The fulfillment of the human spirit through the empowerment of every individual on the planet. That gets me up in the morning, right? Woohoo! Let's Now, that's not just fulfill other people. That means I have to be that self-fulfilled individual. People come to me not because I'm scared and small and I'm disempowered. They come to me because I'm going, woohoo, let's self-empower. And let's get that self-fulfillment, that fulfillment of our human spirit. And that's what's going to get every single one of us up in the morning, is to say, hey, this is what's important to me. This is what I want to see in the world. And this is this is the trajectory I'm on. Will I bring about the fulfillment of the human spirit by myself? No way. But that's what gets me up in the morning. And so for each of us to have that sense, because that doesn't come from, I'm going to make $1 million next year. That comes from that heart and that place of the spiritual knowing within that we've come here with our talents and gifts to bring to the world. And now I know what mine is, and I want you guys to know what yours is, because that's going to get you up in the world in the morning.
My biggest takeaway is what you just said, crystallizing my vision statement.
Good. And the fellow behind you, Gary?
I beg your pardon?
Stop. I'm sorry.
My name's Edward. So,
I don't think she can hear you.
can you hear me okay, Rosie?
There you are. Okay.
My question is kind of complementary to your topic. And that is very much there are people in the world who are not necessarily in business for themselves, but they function as support. You can think of it as like the housewife or the husband is the primary earner, or vice versa, or the husband is the house husband. But there's a support role, and very often I see this in secretaries of large corporations. They get everything done, but their compensation is so disproportionate to the values that they bring to the company.
Yes.
Do you know of any kind of business models, worker cooperatives that are structured in a way that actually reward people for the value they truly bring, as opposed to merely the role on paper?
So that's the question?
Yes. Have you seen any business models in that way, or can you guide me to literature in that direction?
Okay. So here's my focus. So the one word answer is no, I don't specifically. But here's the place where the crucible element comes in. Is every person that is working and they're feeling undercompensated, that's the work. Much like Leslie's saying, or any others are saying, it's like, I don't know how to ask for more. And the crucible element of our corporate environment is that there has to be a rise up, if you will, of every individual or any individual to say, hey, I'm not going to work for this. I'm going to get myself another job. I'm going to find a place where I can do that. And the more that we support people to do that, that's part of my job, is to say, what keeps you there? And what choices do you have? Those kinds of things. And we can get into the whole, the survival aspects of that for the individual. But there's something greater at stake here that the conversation needs to be had for every individual who is undercompensating themselves, because in essence, it's a personal choice for the individual to be there. Regardless of the circumstances, there's a human element that keeps people in a place less than what they absolutely deserve. So I don't know if that helped timing. That's the answer. What's your response to that? Was that helpful?
In that it's on the individual to, in a way, make sure that they are valuing themselves enough, that they are being rewarded enough for the effort that they put in. I can definitely see that. Thank you.
And it's like that's part of their spiritual. That's the crucible element. The spiritual work that's theirs is like, hey, I am a child of God here. Like, what the heck am I thinking? Working for less than and doing work that's not really contributing to my vitality and my thriving. What the heck am I thinking? And there's so many of us in the world with that kind of perspective. I'm speaking with a company in a nonprofit in Seattle. They're called Ventures, and their job is to work with low-income individuals to start businesses. And this woman was saying some of these people have been in poverty forever, like 2 or 3 generations of poverty. Some of them are single parents and all the rest of it. And some of them are they have racial issues and all those kinds of things. And there's that element of, oh, I can't do this because of, and then you just name the factors, doesn't matter what they are. But the point is that each of us is required, this is my place, my perspective, required in terms of our spiritual journey to really take note and say, there's none of this that gets in my way of having what I say I want and being successful at fulfilling my human spirit. Nothing. I'm here to make sure nothing gets in my way. And that's my job in terms for me personally. And I empower every individual that I can to do the same for themselves. So thanks for raising that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we're coming to the end. Oh, we're now past the end. We're over.
We're over. That's okay.
Hey, thanks you guys. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you.
Can't wait to come to Lubbock. I'm coming someday soon.
Yes. Yeah, we're working on bringing Rosie to do the deep recovery workshop and hopefully the business workshop as well. So yeah, to do both of them in that week. So hopefully by the end of this year, like we'll see when it happens, but we're working on it.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Thanks again, Rosie. I'm so grateful for you and all your
back,
beautiful
Elizabeth.
talents and your soul. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.